Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tibetan Language Institute's free bonus lecture um, on selected passages from Gampopa's Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Um, my name is George. We have David here to teach the bulk of the class. He'll be on in a minute. But first, a couple of introductory remarks, messages, what have you, in case this is your first time with us and you don't know what all we do. So the Tibetan Language Institute is an educational nonprofit that's dedicated to the teaching and promulgation of the classical Tibetan language, um, which is the liturgical language of Tibetan Buddhism. Our teacher, Lama David Curtis, has been at it for well over 30 years now, and has taught thousands of students to read Tibetan over the years, for a long time over the phone and now on Zoom. But yeah, so we teach classical Tibetan courses by Zoom, from introductory courses where we teach you how to read the alphabet and use the dictionary and things like that, all the way up to reading bona fide texts in Tibetan. We pride ourselves on having very student-friendly materials. We think that anyone can do it, and we're here to help that happen, help make that happen. We also have various free offerings, such as this one. And there's lots of study and practice aids available on our website. You can learn more at the bottom here at www.tibetanlanguage.org, or shoot us an email at info@tibetanlanguage.org. Anywho, that's about all I have to say, and I'll hand it over to David, and we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this lecture. So very glad you're here, and hope to see you in courses in the future. And take it away, David.
Hello, hello, everyone. Good morning. It's morning in Montana, anyway. Um, so we have people, I think it went over 100. A few days ago, we had 97 people register for this class, and I think it's over 100 now, and people from 21 countries. So some people are, as George mentioned, some people are going to catch the recording later. But in any case, welcome, everyone. Really glad you're here. This, the text we're going to work with. We've taught on and off over the years at TLI. In the year 2000, we had a seminar on this course, a live seminar in Los Angeles. And the great translator Chiki Nima came and taught. He and I co-taught. It was quite a lot of fun. Anyway, I love this text, and I'm really happy to be sharing it with you today in this way. So also, as George mentioned, the there's a portion of the text that we taught last year from the author's introduction, and then we're going to follow up on that with another part of the introduction that has universal relevance to the study of Buddhism. So the name of the text, this is it right here in Tibetan. This is a Tibetan book. It's called a Pecha, Pecha. Got the title on the cover there. Um, the, then there's the title page. Some of you have studied it before. It's Dam Chu, Yijin Norbu, Tarpa Rinpoche Gen, JW. So it's often called the Jewel Ornament of Liberation because um, that's how it was first translated into English, and then that title caught on, even though it's not perhaps a perfect translation. But anyway, that's the text. It's written by Gampopa, who lived from 1074 to 1153. So about 900 years ago. There's a modern rendition of what he looked like. So Gampopa was a very remarkable genius, philosopher, meditator, scholar, the whole thing, realized person, highly realized person. And he first trained in the sutra system of the Kadampas. That's the school that Atisha brought to Tibet that caused a great revolution of Buddhism in Tibet. And his influence is still felt today in all the schools of Buddhism. And then later, he met Milarepa and trained in the Tantra system with Milarepa. And then he is known for fusing those two together and forming what became called later the Kagyu lineage. Um, so he wrote our text, the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, and this is the first Lam Rim text. And the Lam Rim texts are encyclopedic, step-by-step introduction to Buddhism. They discuss everything, starting from the basic situation we find ourselves in as people in samsara, and then teachings going all the way up to enlightenment. And so his this Jewel Ornament of Liberation was the first Lamrim written in Tibetan, and then it went on and influenced all kinds of other greatest scholars and meditation masters in Tibet, including Tsongkhapa, that George mentioned earlier, who wrote the Lamrim Chenmo, which just means the big one, the big stages of the path text. And he's from the Gelug tradition, and he influenced Jigme Lingpa, who wrote the Treasury of Precious Qualities in the Nyingma tradition. We have a book club reading one of his books. You can inquire um, if you're interested in tuning into that. That's a Zoom class. And then also Nurchen Lindrup in the Sakya tradition wrote a book called The Three Visions. That's a Lamrim that was influenced by Gampopa. So huge influence. People have continued to study him for, over or about 900 years, I guess now. That's a long time to be influential. So it's the book, The Jewel Ornament, is one of the great Tibetan classics. And as I said, it's read and revered by people from all different lineages. And then um, in 1959, Herbert Gunther published a translation. So the Tibetans, the great disaster, and it all came to an end with the Tibetan Buddhist culture in 1959. That's when the genocide began. Well, it actually began 10 years earlier, but the Tibetan people tried to revolt. They were violently suppressed, and then that's when a lot of the masters and a lot of other people fled Tibet in 1959. Meanwhile, Gunther was teaching in India and met the Tibetans and learned Tibetan, and he was teaching in the Sanskrit language. And then he published the book here, and here's his translation, The Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa. The S isn't pronounced there. Um, but anyway, a brilliant book, but it's really quite challenging unless you've read physics and systems theory. His English is difficult. And so I recommend the book that we're going to be using excerpts from today, and that's by Kenshin Kuncho Gyaltsen. And in this beautiful book, it was published in 1998 by Snowline. This book has an excellent intro. It has a very cool synopsis of each chapter, so you can basically read the whole, the heart of the book in that synopsis and learn a tremendous amount that would be relevant to any study and practice in Buddhism. It has life stories of the people mentioned. It has an outline, a glossary. It's really a fantastic book. Okay. So that's kind of what we're up to working with that book, The Jewel Ornament. So now I'd like to talk about the text a little bit itself. Um, the text opens with an homage. He pays, if you happen to have this book, I'll just mention that after all the introduction and whatnot, the title page is on page 43. That introduction is really helpful. And The Jewel Ornament of Liberation, the wish-fulfilling gem of the noble teachings by Gampopa. And then his homage says, I prostrate to the noble Manjushri in youthful form. I pay homage to the victorious ones, that would be the Buddhas, their followers, the Bodhisattvas, the holy Dharma, and to the Lamas, who are the foundation. This noble teaching, which is like a wish-fulfilling jewel, will be written for the benefit of myself and others by depending on the kindness of Mila and Lord Atisha. So there he's paying homage um, to those two great masters and those two streams of thought that he put together. Excuse me. Then begins the introduction in Tibetan. So in the introduction, he starts out by making the point that in general, all phenomena of all of reality can be included or subsumed into the two categories of samsara and nirvana. And then he makes the point regarding samsara. So for the people that read Tibetan, all phenomena, that's chu tamche, and then samsara is korwa. So regarding samsara, then it has the nature, its true reality is emptiness, but it manifests as confusion. This is samsara, right? And then it has the characteristic of suffering. So that's what's going on in samsara. It's kind of showing up in the world as confusion, and then it has this confusion is just tied in with suffering. But nirvana, on the other hand, so samsara is korwa, nirvana is jnanan le depa, and that means refers to a state having transcended all misery. That's what nirvana means in Tibetan. Its true quintessential nature is emptiness as well, tongpa ni, but its manifestation is the exhaustion and dispersion of all that confusion. It's all gone away. And then its characteristic is liberation from all suffering. So he makes that point right at the beginning of his introduction. And then he stops talking about nirvana and talks about samsara instead, because that's where we are, that's what we're dealing with. And he makes the point that all beings in samsara are confused, and this is due to ignorance, and confusion operates in all throughout all of our activities. And then he says, uh, gives the example, it's like sleep and dream. So we're in this world of samsara, taking it to be real, just as we take a dream to be real. Um, first of all, when we're sleeping, we can be completely unconscious, right? And then in a dream, a dream comes, and then we buy into that and think that that's totally, totally real. And then we wake up and go, oh, that wasn't quite as real as I thought. But anyway, confusions like that, he says, that it originates in beginningless samsara. And then he asks a rhetorical question, well, what's wrong? What's the problem with confusion? What's wrong with that? And he said the problem is it causes all of our experiences to be imbued with suffering. And confusion is only transformed into primordial wisdom. It's opposite than when one attains unsurpassable enlightenment. So we must understand samsara is endless, he goes on to say, and that it's confusion, and that it leads to tremendous suffering. How great the suffering is, we need to understand that. Therefore, he concludes, from today onward, we must make as much effort as possible to attain unsurpassable enlightenment. Get from the samsara column into the nirvana column on that chart. And then he gives a summary. Then he asks the question, what do we need to make that effort for the rest of our lives to achieve enlightenment? What exactly do we need? And then he lists the famous 6 topics. So the 6 topics that we're going to deal with, we're going to give a definition of them today, but that's in this first shloka. Shloka is a 4-line verse in Tibetan, and I'll just read it in Tibetan, and then I'll read the translation. So, Gyu, Dong, Ten, Dong, Ken, Dong, Ni, Top, Dong, Dre, Bu, Trin, Lei, Te, La, Mei, Zhang, Chu, Chi, Dom, Druk, Lo, Den, Nam, Ki, She, Par, Ja. So that's Gyudong, Tendong, Kendong, Ni, Topdong, Drebu, Trinlay, Te, Lame, Jungchu, Chidong, Druk, Loden, Namki, Shapar, Ja, cause, basis, condition, methods, fruition, and activity, enlightened activity, that should say, are the six general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment. The ones who are wise should know these. So he's saying, we're in samsara. We've got to strive to get out with all of our energy. And then what do we need to, how do we do that? What do we need to know to do that? And then he lists these six topics. Then he goes on to define the topics, each of the topics. So here are the succinct definitions of the six general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment. This is what we're going to study today, but I'll just read it through once, first in English and then Tibetan. This is what we're going to go into and look at the Tibetan and talk the Dharma a little bit. So when we study something like this, then we see the conjunction of Tibetan studies and Dharma studies. They come together. And then the knowing a bit of Tibetan sheds light on the Dharma teachings in a way. It's like we get the Dharma teachings and it's like a semi-dark room. You know, we don't understand different terms, different names. What's he talking about? Um, and that this can happen when we read books or when we go to teachings. And then when we know that no Tibetan, it's as if someone turns on a light for us. But anyway, the cause is Sugata Garbha. I'll explain that later. The basis is the excellent, precious human body. The supporting condition is the spiritual friend. The methods are his instructions. The result is the kaya of the perfect Buddha, and the activity is performing the benefit of beings and not having any concept about it at all, just doing them. So these are six one-line definitions of the six topics that all intelligent people need to know. And the Tibetan, I always like to point out, when the thing that's translated as the wise in Tibetan, it's Loden, and lo is mind. That's the same word when we talk about mind training, right? I think all of Buddhism is mind training. And den means to have. So lo den is literally the people that have a mind, that have a bright intellect, intelligent people. You need to know these. And so then here are the succinct definitions. So I'll just read them in Tibetan then. First I'll read them like pretty slowly for uh, people just beginning to learn Tibetan, and then I'll read it a little more smoothly. Q, Ni, De, Shek, Ning, Po, Te, Ten, Ni, Mi, Lu, Rin, Chen, Chok, Ken, Ni, Ge, Wei, She, Yen, Yen, Tap, Ni, De, Yi, Dam, Nak, Te, Dre, Bu, Zok, Sang, Ge, Ki, Ku, Trin, Le, Tok, Me, Dro, Dun, Se, Gyuni, Deshik, Ningpo, Te, Teni, Milu, Rinchen, Chok, Kenny, Gateway, Sheyen, Yen, Tapni, Dei, Damnak, Te, Drebu, Zoksang, Geiki, Ku, Trinle, Tokme, Droden, Ze. Okay, so now, um, so then the principal text that we have, our handout text, has both the section that we taught previously, that the six general topics, Gyudang, Tendang, Kendang, Ni, that one. It's all parsed out and explained, like each word is labeled as for a noun, for instance, and then defined. And so that's what we have for there. This is the principal text we're going to work with the rest of the day here, rest of our hour. The six general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment. That's the part we've already studied. And now the succinct definitions of the six general topics. Um, selected from Gampopa's Jewel Ornament. Okay, so now we're going to jump right into the succinct definitions of the six general topics. So here we're going to start on page 7 and then jump back to page 6. Um, okay, so what we do first then in looking at the Tibetan is we spell it out. So I haven't been spelling this morning, I've just been reading. So now we spell the Tibetan, and then we read the Tibetan, and then we go back over to page 6 where it's parsed or analyzed. Okay, so we've got Da Dring Bude, Da Ga Dag, Ra Gi Gu Ri Ma Rim, Pa Ra Par, Ba O Sa Ta 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 Na Ten, Pa Na Gi Gu Ni. Dedag, Rimpar, Tenpa Ni. It's written in meter, and the way that the meter works is it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all the lines we'll look at today will do that. Um, that's how Tibetan texts are. Most of them are written in meter, actually. Many of them aren't, but like sadhanas, our practice texts, those are almost all written in meter and it helps to sing them. But then the meaning fits into the way the to that meter, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each line, the meaning fits in there too. Okay, so now we come over to the parsing on page 6, and um, it says 3.1.1, and then it says, so that's the TLI text of the Jewel Ornament. And then JR, John Rockwell has a introduction to Tibetan grammar, and then it has a reader that comes with it. That's how language study of classical languages usually works, is first you learn the grammar, and then you have a reader that you study those in that language, right? And so Rockwell has done that with Tibetan, and for his reader, he made a beautiful synopsis of the Jewel Ornament, our text here today. So we tie you in for the people that have that book and have studied with me. That Rockwell book, this shows you where we are in his reader. Okay, so so we've got day dog, Rimpar Tenpa Ni. So day is a demonstrative pronoun. It means that. And then the DT, that's a famous grammar poem that gives rules of grammar and use of particles. So that's the reference where demonstrative pronouns are taught. So the person that's been studying Tibetan a little while, then she can go to the Divine Tree and learn about the demonstrative pronouns. But the pronoun can mean that, but in the Tibetans use it sometimes where we would use she, her, him, them, but it just means the aforementioned, who or what was mentioned up above. Um, and then doc, the pluralizing particle, just indicates that that's plural. So what he's talking about here, which could be translated as them, see in the translation over at the bottom of page 7, to explain them in order. Okay, so data, it's those six topics. That's what's being referred to. That's the them or the data. And then Rimpa is a stage. Sometimes it's just abbreviated to Rim. It's a stage like Lam Rim. This is a Lam Rim text. So that's kind of interesting that he's putting that word in here. Um, and then having the Ra, that's what we call a La Dun particle, and it's in the Divine True Grammar poem 20 to 26 for the Tibetan students. Um, so Rinpa means stage, and then the Ra can mean in, but it's sometimes functions like kind of a ly to make a verb and to make a word an adverb in English. So then it would be uh, to make up a word, it would be stagely. And so in stages or successively. And so that's what the translator, by the way, a brief word on him, Kenshin Kuncho Gelson. Um, one time I went to a teaching of his in Malibu in California, and when lunch break was happening, then a friend of mine who lived like very close by, she lived in the Malibu colony, if you know that. That's where a lot of famous directors and people live. And um, she invited me to lunch with the Rinpoche. And so just the three of us had lunch in her beautiful house, and it was like right on the beach. And when the water came in, sometimes it shook the house a little bit. It was so close to the ocean. Anyway, it was very beautiful. And he and I determined that our we had the same refuge lama, same root lama, and the great Kalu Rinpoche, who passed away back in the 80s. Um, and so then I showed him what I was doing and talked about what I was doing. And he really, really liked that I was teaching Tibetan. And he told me that I could use any of his books and anything that he did, um, um, if it would help me to teach Tibetan. And so then that's why we're using his translation here. Um, but yeah, and that what they've done in that book, The Jewel Ornament of Liberation, it's one of the best Dharma books that I've read in my 40 years. Okay, anyway, he says to explain them in order. So that in the in order bit, that's what he's doing with Rimpa. Somebody else might say successively or one by one or something like that, right? And I was kind of making a joke, but sometimes when you're overly literal, it gets the meaning across, but it's not how we speak English, right? We don't say stagely in English. And then Tenpa. So this is a very, very important word. Some of you know people with that in their name. Um, um, and so here, Tenpa, when it's spelled like this, is a past or a future of the verb. So there we've got a little footnote 6 down at the bottom, and it says past or future of satatata naro to na tun. There it is, tun. And that's a classified verb that means some of you have just learned that means it's going to be a transitive verb. And it's two form. That means it has two different spellings. So there's the 10 that we have up there, and then in the text, and then the tun, that's the what it's coming from. That's the present tense. And it means to show or to teach. So it's a very important word, tun. And then in the past or future, it becomes 10. And so he's starting off here in this uh, he's still in the introduction and he said, so it makes sense. I will teach, right? So those 6 topics that I mentioned up above, that all is understood by Dadoc, Rimpar, successively or in stages, I will teach. And then Nakiguni is a little particle that the Tibetans, it's called a topic particle because we're going to see it used a lot today, and it's used to mark the topic under discussion, so kind of like a colon in English. Um, but it's also used just to fill out the meter because if he's writing in 7 syllables per line, it's always going to be 7 syllables. He's not going to, he might leave out particles or words that would be helpful to know about, but it's always going to be 7 syllables once he's set on 7. And so day doc rimpa tenpa ni 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So I'm going to teach those 6 general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment um, successively now too. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So then on to the next line, we pop back over to the other page for a moment. Page 7, line 2, and I spell ragata gayata gyashabkyu gyu Nagiguni, Bao Da Dringbu De, Gao Sha Dringbu She Ga Sa Shek, Sanyata Nyagi Guni Na Ning, Pa Naropo, Satata Ta Dringbu Te, Kuni De Shek Ningpo Te. Okay, then on page 6, over the parsing page, we see Q is a noun and it means cause. Gunther translates it as motive and has a whole thing like he doesn't think it means cause, but almost everybody calls it cause. Now, there's you hear in teachings the expression causes and conditions very, very often. This is we find this one of the first expressions of it in Gampopa. And so, but first talking about cause. And so some people will translate those in different ways. They're Gyu and Ken in Tibetan. Um, and so there's a primary cause of something, and then there's a condition that, and then those two come together, and then something can happen. So he's saying the cause here, and we're talking about our achievement of enlightenment, getting out of samsara to nirvana, the cause of that. So the primary essential thing that makes that possible. And then here's the ni again, be functioning as a particle, a topic marking particle. So I'm going to talk about cause, he's saying now by saying Q ni. So regarding cause, and then he says, Daishek Yingpo. This is an extremely important concept in Tibetan Buddhism. Um, and the Ningpo means the heart or the essence or the quintessence of something. And Deshek is literally bliss gone. But it's short here for Dewar Shekpa, and that's one who is gone to bliss. You know, Amitabha's Pure Land is called Dewa Chen, blissful. Um, but bliss, a state of bliss, that's one of the qualities of enlightenment is bliss. And so one who has gone to bliss, that's just another word for a Buddha. But so that's the Deshek. But then we're talking here about the essence or the heart essence or the quintessence of one who's gone to bliss. That's our Buddha nature. So each of these topics um, like the Gyu here, the cause, the fact that we have Buddha nature, that's going to have its own chapter in the book. It's the first chapter. It's one of the most famous chapters that's ever been written. So any serious philosopher or scholar of Buddhism, whether Tibetan or elsewhere, any or otherwise, they're going to read and study that first chapter of Gampopa. Maybe we can do that together sometime later on. And then that sate at the end, that's just the continuation particle. So we can translate it as and here. Okay, so that's our first line. The Tibetans have a tendency to put first things first. When we have the refuge prayer, it says Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. It starts with that. Okay. Um, so let's pop over to the facing page 7 and do the next line. So ratatata drengbute na ten nagiguni magigumi la shabku lu sa lu ragiguri na rin cha drengbuche na chen ma o cha naro cho ga chok ten ni mi lu rin chen chok. Okay, then now looking at the parsing page, 10. So remember the people that know Tibetan, that you might keep that if you've printed that out, that chart of the 6 topics, Gyudong, Tendong, Kendong Ni, cause and basis. Anyway, this is the second one of the 6 topics that we're defining now. It's 10. It means basis or support. There's Nagiguni after it, like the English colon. That's the one dot on top of the other. So regarding the basis, then I just told you what the cause is, the primary cause or the motive, and now the basis. So there's something that kind of supports that. So everybody's got Buddha nature. We have this Buddha nature, but then we have a support for it, don't we? A basis. And that's me. Magigumi is an adjective here meaning human, and Lu is body. Milu is body. So that means human body. And then the human body is Rinchen, that means precious. So Milu Rinchen is the precious human body. Sometimes you hear this expressed as Milu Rinpoche. So I always say I was the village idiot in a 3-year retreat. One day I was walking in the very early days of being in the retreat. I was walking back to my room, which is in the far corner, my little hovel um, of the little retreat center. And I saw everybody else was in the shrine room. So there was something happening I didn't know. And I opened the door and I said to the monk that opened the door, He was my translator the first year. And then I told him after that I was good, I could handle it. But anyway, I said to him, "What's happening?" He said, "Well, our Lama's coming to teach us Milu Rinpoche." And so I knew about all these other Rinpoches like Kala Rinpoche, and I said, "Who's Milu Rinpoche?" And he just said, "Jeesh," and rolled his eyes and turned his back on me and walked away. Because Milu Rinpoche means precious human body, so it's not a person. Anyway, that's a dumb David story. Um, and then, so Rinchen is precious, and then he adds another modifier, sublime or supreme. So something like supremely precious human body. So that's the basis or the support for our Buddha nature. We have this beautiful situation with the precious human body. Okay, so then if we look at the facing page 7, we can see the Kempo's translation. To explain them in order, and we're going to go through the 6. Number 1, the primary cause is the essence of the well-gone one. It's actually bliss-gone one. Dewa is bliss, it's not well. And that's a sugata. Um, you've probably heard that word. And then anyway, as a working basis, the precious human body is excellent. All right, so these are two of the things that we need to make this journey. We've got the most important thing, the primary cause of our achieving enlightenment is that we have Buddha nature. And then the working basis, we have the precious human body. Not all humans have the precious human body, but everybody listening to this does. Okay, okay, let's go to the next page and cover another couple topics. Gyudong, kendong, kendong, gyudong, kendong, kendong ni. Okay, so here on top of page 9, then I'll spell Rakata Kayata Kyadringbu Ke Na Ken Nagiguni Dao Gadringbu Ge Wa Agigu I We Bao Shadringbu She Sa She Gao Nyadringbu Ye Na Yen Yagigu Yi Na Yen. Gyu Ni Ge Wei She Yan Yin. Kenny Ge Wei She Yan Yin. Okay, let's look at page 8. And Ken, this is our third topic. You might want to put a 3 there. It's the third of the 6 general topics that all intelligent people should know. And that's the condition. So I was talking about causes and conditions. So some people will translate it that way. We just had cause with Gyu, the Buddha nature, and now the Ken. And other people want to call it a contributory cause or minor or secondary cause or something like that. Causes and conditions is kind of standard, but you know, all those are valid ways of doing it. And then ni is the topic marking particle or the colon. So like regarding the ken, the condition. So this is our third thing. What is it? And then gateway here, gateway, gewa, take off the agigui. Thank you very much. Nice highlighting there. Gewa is a noun and it means virtue. Agigui is a genitive particle. It's a connector and it can turn a noun into adjective just like we do with OUS in English or FUL. We have a noun, beautiful, beauty, but we can make an adjective out of it by adding full, right? Beautiful. Same with the virtue. We can have virtue as a noun and we make an adjective in English by adding OUS. Do you see how OUS is just a particle that affixes, that gets fused on to the noun and it makes an adjective. Um, Spiritual is an example, right? Spirit and spiritual, then it becomes an adjective, right? So, and then the adjective, when you have that kind of adjective, it often comes right before the noun it modifies, right? In Tibetan, that agigui genitive connector connects it to what's following. And then what's following is really the shenyan. And shen and yen are two different words for friend. Um, but then these all go together. Geiwei Shenyan, those 4 syllables. Yes, nice. Geiwei Shenyan, that's the Tibetan word for the Sanskrit Kalyana Mitra. A Mitra is a friend. Kalyana is virtuous or spiritual. So I like spiritual friend for it. It's literally in Tibetan, virtuous friend. But it's a Dharma friend, teacher person, right? And then yin is the verb is. And yin in Tibetan can be used for just about any use of is that we have in English. Am, are, is, was, were, be, being, been, all of that. It's a one form verb. It's just all yin in Tibetan. Okay. So here now the ken ni, by putting the ni after the ken, that means this is the subject. So that's the condition. And then in Tibetan, the verb is at the end. So if we're approaching it in an English kind of way, we would label kinni as one and then jump to the end and look for a verb. And there's yin at the end. And then that's step two. And that means is. So the condition is, and then we would come backwards and we get Gewei Shenyan. So the condition is the spiritual friend. Wow, so we've got this other kind of, our main support, the main reality of who we are as Buddha nature. Then it now has this beautiful support of the precious human life, you could say, that committed to the Dharma and interested in altruism and love and compassion for others and all of that. We're open to those kind of teachings. So we've got the precious human body. And then not only that, the next thing that we need that we're all fortunate to have is the condition. And that's the spiritual friend. So let's go over to the next page and do the next one. So that the Ken is the third thing. Now the fourth thing, page 9, line 2, Ta Ba Sa Tab, Na Gigu Ni, Da Dring Bu De, Ya Gigu Yi, Ga O Da Ma Sa Dam, Na Ga Nak, Sa Ta 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 Dring Bu Te, Tap Ni, De Yi, Dam Nak Te. Okay, then in the parsing pages, top, top is method, but the method is interpreted and talked about a lot. You've heard it talked about as the skillful means or expedient means. In Sanskrit, it's the word upaya. So that's the skillful means. So then the teacher, the Gewei Shenyan, the Ken, he can't really be uh, an authentic spiritual friend unless he has method, technique, ways of helping, right? Of guiding us, confused ones wandering in samsara. So top ni, just regarding the top, the method or the skillful means, we can assume an yin at the end, but if we go to the end, we just find a continuation particle there. But it is we can just assume that, or we can just leave it out too, like the Tibetans assume. The method, Domnok. Now, Domnok is instruction. It can be through any different kind of means. It doesn't have to be oral instruction. We probably should have not put oral in there. That some people do that and it's common. So when I first put this in, I did that. But today I would just leave it as instruction. Okay, so then the method is the instruction, and then we keep going backwards. Yi means of, and de means that. That one that we just mentioned up above, and who do we just mention up above? But Ken, the spiritual friend. So the method that we've got going for us too is the oral instruction of the spiritual friend. If Anam Tupten or whoever your spiritual friend is, Kempo Kunjo, if they just had all of these qualities and were realized themselves and were nice people, um, that wouldn't be that helpful for us. But we're blessed because these teachers, they do have skillful means. That's why it's so important to pick a right teacher, right? That really has the skillful means. Are they just charismatic and powerful and sexy and cute? Or, do they really have top, right? Skillful means where they can help people. So anyway, the method then the skillful means is the oral instruction of the teacher. So of course the good ones they teach then, right? So we got that going for us. Okay, there's number 4 quality. Okay, of the topics of 6 general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment. That was number 4. So let's do number 5, which is highlighted for us there on page 9, line 3. A o barata drasa dre basha kubu Radzata za naro zo ga sa zok, sa na sa sang, ra gata ga yata gya sa ge, ka yata kya gigu ki, sa kata ka shabkyu ku. So thank you for your patience, the people that don't read Tibetan. So I'm spelling the Tibetan line there, and now I'm going to read it out. Dre, bu, zok, song, geiki, ku. Drebu, Zoksang, Geiki Ku. All right, so looking at that on page 8, the Drebu is fruit, pala in Sanskrit. So Drebu is the fruit, the effect, like the result, some people translate it. Um, so then if we're following the instructions of that Lama, with the support of our precious human body and the whole time knowing that deep inside we've got Buddha nature, then that results in something. That's why we're on the path, right? The the Lam Dre is the um, Lam Rim, that's the teaching of the Sakya people, and it's kind of a cool thing because Lam means path and Dre is short for Drebu here. Path and fruit, they're one thing really ultimately. But we need to know about both of them. Okay, so anyway, the fruit, the result then of leading this life of the Buddhist, let's go to the end. Assume the verb is, it is the ku. Now, ku is the Sanskrit word kaya that you've all heard. So it means body, but it also means spiritual dimension. So body, because this word can mean statue too, but we just don't mean the body, right? Ordinary body. It's an honorific word, so you wouldn't use it talking about yourself. Um, when Tibetan people say to others, they're very respectful and kind and compassionate people, but they'll say "kut ring," and that means long life, have a long life. But they use this word "ku" to say, "I'm speaking to you. I'm in the honorific register. I'm showing my appreciation, respect, and maybe even reverence for you." When you say "kut ring." And when you say Kuzu Depo Yimpe, how are you? That's like Como Talez-vous in pardon me, my French, in French. Um, we're being respectful, honorific in this register. So Tibetan has two separate, probably from one of the languages like Spanish and French and German and Italian, they have pronouns for respectful speaking, right? And then ordinary pronouns. But in Tibetan, they have verbs and nouns um, for respectful writing and speaking. So the ku, that's something very special. We don't want to think about somebody in the gym getting good abs or whatever. It's the spiritual dimension of ultimate reality. But here it's a ku, and then going backwards, ki is of, and then Buddha, Sangye is Buddha, and Dzog is perfect, like Dzogchen. So here it's Dzog Sangye, perfect Buddha. So what's the result of following this path in this way? When you have all these things lined up for you? Um, you have the Buddha nature, you have the precious human body, you have the teacher, you have the teachings, and that results in a drebu and fruit, result, an effect, and that is the body of the Buddha perfect, the perfect Buddha, the body of perfect Buddha. Whoa, that's amazing, right? And so that's number 5. Let's look at the translation on the next page. So the contributory cause is the spiritual master. The method is the spiritual master's instruction, and the result is the body of perfect Buddhahood. I would almost say the sacred dimension of perfect Buddhahood. Okay, but that's just me. Translators, you know, do their own thing. Okay, so we got one more. So it seems like that's the end, right? That would be the end. Perfect Buddha is the end. But no, there's something more. So on 11, line 1, Ao parata tragigu trina trin, la sa le, ratatata naro to ga tok, madringbu me da me, Ao garata dra naro dro, da naro do na dun, mao za da ze. Trin le, Tokme, Drodunze. Okay, so now let's go over to the parsing. So Trinley, maybe you know somebody named Trinley. So a lot of these key Buddhist concepts, the lamas will give their students those as refuge names, and when you take certain empowerments, you get a new name, you know. But anyway, Trinley is a common one. Trinley means Buddha activity or enlightened activity. Lhasa lay is the Tibetan word for action or karma. But Trinley means enlightened activity, you know, the Buddha activity. So once one reaches that result of the dimension of perfect Buddha, it's not all over. One engages in his enlightened activity. And then Tokme. Tok means to have concept about things, and me is a negation particle, like the less in English. So conception less, or not having conception. Um, you know, so there's no once one is enlightened and engaged in enlightened activity, it's not that they don't give the teachings to certain people because they think they're inferior or something. That would be to have concepts about it, right? Um, Rather, they have, without any concept whatsoever, they're beyond concept. And so they don't engage in lay, which would be karma. They're not making karma anymore. Thank you. Phew, what a relief, right? But they're engaged in enlightened activity. It's not that they don't do nothing. They're engaged in activity, but it's enlightened activity, and they do that without concept, and then they droden it. So Dro it means to go, literally. So Luke Skywalker comes from the Tibetan word Khandro, and it means sky goer, but they just change it to walker. But anyway, this is the Dro of Khandro also. But then ordinary Dro is just a being like us. And then Dun is benefit. So Drodun, that's what it's all about from beginning to end, right? The benefit of others. George Eliot said, "What do we live for if not to make life less difficult for others, for each other, right?" And then "ze" is an honorific verb to do, to make, to act. So without any concept, yeah, there it is. It's honorific of J, Bayata Jadrango J, which is the most important verb in Tibetan. Um, and this is the honorific one that you don't see as often. But we're talking about the activity, somebody doing the activity, but they're already a Buddha. So that's why it's the honorific verb. This is the subtle kind of thing that there are hundreds and thousands of when you know Tibetan that you see in reading the Tibetan, but it can't be translated. We can't say honorifically do the benefit of others, in English. That was that doesn't make sense, right? But it's embedded in a Tibetan, and when you see this word "ze," you know that it's someone like a Buddha or a Rinpoche or something that's doing it, or you're being very polite and speaking about somebody, or reverential, as I say. So, so then the enlightened activity, the Trinley, is doing Droden, other benefit without any concept, doing that without any concept whatsoever. And that's our sixth topic. So let's pop back over. Um, and there's another little closing line. Chadringbu che sa che pa ranatana masa nam yagigu na yin na naro no che pa Nam, I was thinking about something I was going to say. Chepa Nam, So Chugi first taught us this joke that I'll mention in just a moment. So Chepa, that's just a closed quote particle. And then Nam is a pluralizing particle. So it's basically saying these are, remember at the beginning you said I'm going to teach all of these um, successively, stagely, one by one. And so he just did that, right, and defined them one by one. And then this is how he kind of concludes it to say, boom, kind of seals it at the end. Yep, I did that. These are they, almost. And then no is a terminating particle. That's just the Tibetan version of the English period. They're not a perfect match, but here it is. And so it's just kind of a cute little joke, right? Because yin means that's it, it is, and no is just a period. But anyway, in English, it comes to be, you know. So that's just a little Dharma joke, you know. So so there they are. Isn't that cool? Let's look at the translation on the facing page. Excuse me. The activities are benefiting sentient beings without conceptual thought. I have a little problem with this translation because it sounds like the sentient beings don't have the conceptual thought. The activities are benefiting sentient beings without conceptual thought. It, and I would suggest if I was part of the translation committee, and by the way, these people are two brilliant people. Kempo, who's now called Kenchen Kuncho Geltsen Rinpoche, the translator, and it's edited and helped in the translation by Annie Trinley Chudrin. Um, Annie Trinley is now a Ken Mo. She's been given the title of a Ken Mo, so a really, really fine scholar. And she studied at TLI back in the day. Okay. Anyway, I would say, so I need to say for this, um, the activity is to, without any concept, um, accomplish the benefit of being, something like that. I realize I just did a split infinitive there, but it's doing it without any concept. So the activities are without concept to do the benefit of sentient beings, something like that, right? So the doer doesn't have any concept is the point. And then these six topics form the body of this text. Now the limbs will be explained in detail. So he's saying what I've given here with these, by defining these six, this is just an overview of the whole topic here. So that's like the big, like having a snapshot of the body or something. And now we're going to go into it in extreme detail and like have a whole chapter for most of them. So let's go back and take a look at um, that handout that has the whole thing on it, the six topics and then the succinct definition, that one page. There we go. Okay, so we studied this last time, but again, he makes this point about samsara and nirvana, then says you really got to get out of samsara and do everything that you can, and then what's needed to do that, and that's the six general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment. Gyudong, Tendong, Kendong Ni, Topdong, Drebu, Trinley Te, Lame, Zhongchu, Chidom, Druk, Loden, Namki, Shapar Jah, cause, basis, condition, methods, fruition, and enlightened activity are the six general topics of unsurpassable enlightenment. The ones who are wise should know these. And then he gives us a one-line definition of each one. Gyuni Deshek Ningpo Te. The cause is Sugata Garba. Teni Milu Rinchen Chok. The basis is the excellent, precious human body. Kenni Gewei Shenyan Yin. The supporting condition is the spiritual friend. Tapni Dei Damnak Te. The methods are his oral instructions. Drebu, Zoksang, Geiki, Ku. The result is the kaya of the perfect Buddha. Trinley, Tokme, Droden, Ze. The activity is performing the benefit of beings free from concept. Okay, there you go. So I think that some of you, I hope you got a glimpse of why I think this is so amazing, and not just me, but lots of people do think this book, this text is so incredible. And then just knowing that part right there, do you see how that can contextualize all of our Dharma study and practice fits into that rubric? And then sometimes if people ask me, like I hear you're a Buddhist, what does that mean to be a Buddhist? How would you answer that question? And so I use this as a way to answer it sometimes. Well, in Buddhism, we think that we all have this thing that we call Buddha nature, this enlightened, beautiful, infinite, cosmic nature, that we're one with the ultimate nature of reality. We just call that Buddha nature. We have that, Q Dong Ten. And then we have this precious human body. You can just go through the whole thing like that. And one time we were at a retreat where we were in the mountains, but we were staying in different houses and had to commute each day a little bit, like 5 minute drive or something. And these two friends of mine came and picked me up one day, and they were sitting in the front, two women that had been in the Dharma a really long time. And then I was in the back seat. And one of them said to me, "So I hear you're teaching the Dharma. What do you teach?" And like, okay. And so then I just taught them, I just recited this and explained what I just explained to you. But then I did it in the whole way of a metaphor of an avocado and an avocado tree, with the Buddha nature being a seed. And then there's the earth, and then there's the gardener that's nurturing it, and then his teachings would be when he brings water and fertilizer or whatnot and does the weeding. And anyway, I just went through the whole thing like that. And then in the end, the step 5, the fruit is avocado, but it's not over, because then the enlightened activity is the avocado feeds people. And so then they said that was the Avocado Sutra. And so there you go. This is my sharing of the Avocado Sutra with you today. So I'll stop now, and we'll see if we have some questions.
Hello again. Um, all right. So we do have a couple questions, and of course, if you have any that you'd like addressed, feel free to drop that in the chat or the Q&A, and we will get to it because we have a little bit more time than I think we anticipated having. But first up, I know that Tom said that he got it anyway, but I will throw this up, asking for the Tibetan for nirvana in the first sentence on this handout. Um, so is it not Jangchup? Jangchup is enlightenment, which is in Sanskrit is bodhi, right? Um, so I mean, it's definitely like a related concept, but it's not quite the same. And so this is the term for nirvana in Tibetan, nirvana being, of course, Sanskrit and now English. Um, but it's Mayatanya Lanangen Lasawe. There's that karma word again. Aodasa de pa. So Nyangen le depa. Um, and yeah. Um, and then also this handout, have I have heard that we're having actually more issues with Dropbox than we thought we did. And unfortunately, it seems like they don't have weekend customer support. So we're working to get that solved for you guys, and we are going to send a follow-up email to this class with the recording of this class in case you want to go back and look at anything. And that should be in that folder that unfortunately I think is maybe not accessible right now, but it will be soon, and we'll let you know when it is. Um, and yeah, this chart that I'm sharing, this stuff comes from the TLI website, and we'll also put it in that Dropbox folder. There's a link to it in the chat that Deanna just put in the chat. There's a URL to TibetanLanguage.org. So if you want to download this and put it on your fridge or take it and show to your friends at the bar or whatever, you can do that. All right. Next question. Gotta get my screen sharing ducks in a row here. Tom asks again, the last line, not the one about Trinley, the one with the closed quote particle here, on page 11, this Chepa Namyan no, not 7 syllables, only last lines of stanzas, or that is a good catch. So yeah, it's not, this is actually a typo. There's not missing syllables. It actually is just this long. But the typo is that there are 2 marks here, 2 shays here instead of 1, because all of this previous stuff that we had up here, all of the 6 definitions of the general topics and what have you, that's all in verse. And so you'll notice that it all has touches, which is how they mark that something's in verse. Touches. This is, I mean, it doesn't match the meter of what comes before, and so it should really have one shay only, which is what prose is delineated by. Um, but yeah, that is a good catch. It's not, there's not missing content or anything. It just kind of, I mean, like it shows up in like the content of the line. Like it pretty clearly doesn't go with everything else. Um, it's more of like a almost like a yeah, I mean it's a commentary line or something almost. I don't, that's not quite the right term.
Yeah.
David, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Or
No, no, that's right. It's not part of the metrical teaching part, actually. I think you covered it. It's just like kind of like this is the end of that, and so it's not part of that, as you said, but it's just saying that this is that concludes it.
and I'm now seeing that this on page 7 is also a typo, but in the opposite direction, because this is meter, but only has one shay, and it should
Yeah,
have two.
yeah. And
So
for the people that don't know,
yeah,
a shay
this
is
Je Pate is correct. Because this is kind of analogous to that I mean it's also a closed quote particle.
and we
It's
could just say the shay's the vertical stroke at the end. It's a punctuation mark in
correct.
Tibetan for the
Yeah.
people.
Um delineates the yeah, I mean it literally delineates it. It's the line at the end of the line of text.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. And I don't know if we have got the table, just the other page with the text missing. Um, hmm, that's interesting. Um,
Yeah, that'll all be added in, right, for people
yeah, yeah,
afterwards.
we'll get this sorted out. We have is the six conditions. Deanna, do you happen to know if the six conditions handout came from the website? I think it's up there, but I think it just comes from a different link. But
Yes,
and
yep, it's the version with the two figures. This one is on the website.
I think the other one. Um, but
That's on the website.
the six general topics one, the interlinear one. Anywho, we don't need to get bogged down in that. We'll get Dropbox sorted out, and when we send out the recording to this class, hopefully by then you should be able to access the handouts, which were mostly the things that were shared on screen during this lecture. Um, but yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I don't think we have any more questions. And David, did you have any closing remarks you wanted, or
No, I guess I could just say thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in on your Saturday morning for most of you. Um, and yeah, I hope it's been interesting and edifying. I got kind of excited about it, doing it. It's just so meaningful and so relevant, a fantastic thing. And yeah, tune in to, so some of you who are new to us, I hope you will tune in to some of the programs and things that we offer. So we have the main offering is the Tibetan Language Institute and the classes as George described in the beginning. But we also have Big Sky Mind. That's our Dharma teaching side. And that's all handled through Tibetan Language Institute as well. Oh, and then here, yeah, so this is an event coming up. An Introduction to Tibetan Buddhism is an ongoing class that we have the first Monday of each month. So it'll be December 1st in the USA. And then this is Skype or Zoom rather. Um, so we both meet in person and then share it on Zoom the first Monday of each month. And then it's not mentioned here, but also um, we're reading the Treasury of Precious Qualities, another Lam text on the second Friday. So the first Monday and the second Friday, that's a book club where we're reading progressively going through that. Nyingma Lam text written by Jigme Lingpa. So those are some of the activities that we do, and we're looking forward in the future to offering, which will probably be a Saturday retreats. And I think the first one's going to be on Chenrezig. And I think but that's what the world needs now is a little bit more love and compassion and yes, caring concern for everyone, self, others, and the planet. Okay, well, I guess that's our show for today. And thank you very, very much again for being here. And stay well, be safe, be happy, um, and hope to work with you again soon. Okay, all the very best. Happy trails. Love you. Bye bye.